All right, so with our handsome Mr. Zeke, you ready, sir? We're just going to warm up a little bit with some find its just to get him up and moving and in the groove. Um, so again, find its are going to be really beneficial for helping your babe create movement, redirection, distraction, or to help disengage. So I think of find its as a great way to help your babe become less focused on the environment or what might be around them and more into searching and grazing and or for example finding the tidbits. He says he's already pooped out. He had some WrestleMania with his BFFs earlier. So he says he's ready to take a little break. So I wanted to work a bit with what's called LAT for short. So look at that. Or for example, I normally call it watch that because for my guys, I did look as in give me eyes up here for eye contact or for cueing eye contact. So for Mr. Z, the benefits of working with the look at that or watch that game, chewing is still optional, is it can be really beneficial to help your dog start to view certain things that were once maybe a trigger or were once a bringer of excitement or anxiety, to now if they can look at something when you notice it, and then, for example, do a little check-in, you can start to also create that, for example, looking at the thing is now the bringer of the good. And you can start to change that emotional response or that emotional feeling towards that stimulus. So I know I discussed this a little bit earlier with another client, is let's say, for example, you were kind of really overwhelmed by certain things, like let's say a spider. So sometimes being forced to interact and be intimate with that thing could be way too hard. So I always recommend that if it is a trigger that you're going to try to eventually pair with this game, you want to start in a very benign way with nothing that's threatening. So for example, I chose typically like a little orange cone to use as my look at that item. For some folks, it could be like a water bottle. It could be a pair of sunglasses. The main goal though is you don't want it to have it be a toy for your dog. And you don't want it to be, for example, something that has already an emotional response. So if, for example, your dog was scared of, for example, I don't know, maybe they're nervous around spray bottles, I wouldn't use a spray bottle. So obviously for me, I don't recommend using spray bottles as a way to correct a behavior, because a lot of times through associations, your dog starts to, you're gonna just get cozy, go ahead. Your dog is gonna start to associate the correction with you or the things around them. And the spray bottle is, again, more so suppressing behavior. It's not getting at the root cause. Why is my dog doing this or that? And how can I help them be better set up for success for a different behavior instead? So right here, we just have Mr. Z taking a little nap again. So I'm going to grab the cone in a second. So what this is going to look like in the beginning when you're working with the look at that or watch that game, you will start off with the item behind your back. And then, for example, eventually as your dog is then going and grabbing the snack for gazing at the thing, so you can create that almost disengagement from the game, you can then go ahead and slowly you'd be lowering the item onto a chair or table. That way, when you're ready, you'd be able to go ahead and let's say you have your cone on a chair or a table, you could say, look at that, the dog gazes at the said thing, and you feed them for acknowledging the item. So this can eventually be paired with, for example, other things. So let's say your dog starts to get really overwhelmed with strangers off in the distance. In the beginning, you would probably start to work with obviously well under your dog's threshold. So remember that whenever we're trying to create a new response or change up an old habit, that we want to make sure that we're rehearsing the skills before we need them. So also, if every time we ever did a look at that game was with the stranger danger and that was way too hard for your dog, look at that is the bringer of the bad. So we want to be careful about either ruining the skill or poisoning the food when we're practicing. So I'm going to grab the cone. Mr. Z, don't worry, you don't have to, I guess, get up. He's such a tired gentleman. He's like, oh my gosh, is it food? So what we're going to do is I'm going to have a couple tidbits of snacks, and I'm just ripping his little salmon snacks up a little bit smaller. Some of them are little, and then others come out a little bit bigger when they come out of whatever little machine they make them in. So With your inanimate object, it again shouldn't have any emotional response for the dog. One time when I was working with another sensitive dog in one of my reactive dog classes, he was actually really scared of the cones. So I obviously told them, don't touch the cone, leave it be. They instead just used their hands. So for example, they didn't use the cone, so they ended up having both their hands. They had food in one was empty. They had them both behind their back. And in the beginning, they just started off with the hand would stick out, they would look at it, and then they'd mark it and feed the dog. Mr. Z's like, I will just stare into your soul. So with this exercise, we do also want to mark behavior. So marking behavior is where you would use a marker word or sound to let your dog know exactly when they perform the skill or task or behavior that you were looking for, and that's why they had the reinforcement given. So this way, it'll create more resilient behavior that is going to, again, turn into a habit for them for down the road. And then, of course, you could go into more intermittent reinforcement for down at that path. So for right now, we would want to reinforce every great skill that the dog is offering, because we're creating, again, a bank account of good behavior, or the behaviors we'd like to have happen again are getting reinforced. So that way those become the norm versus the behaviors that give him either no associations, no reinforcement, or get asked to do an opposite behavior. So for right now, I have my cone and my snacks. I'm gonna I'll put the cone this way because he's facing this direction. So I'm gonna put both of them behind my back. What I would end up doing if he doesn't fall asleep on me is I'm gonna go ahead, and I don't remember if he was doing LOOK he's like, fine, you keep talking, I'm taking a nap. So, and I swear, he doesn't do too much, but I think he loves the sound of my voice. It's very soothing, so it makes him feel safe, and he's ready for his siesta. He's almost unconscious right now. So when you go to practice, I would highly recommend to have your food in one side, your item in the other, and we're gonna pick a word that hasn't been used for eyes up here. So I've got a feeling we were maybe using the look behavior or the look cue for eyes on me. So I'm gonna do the watch that. You guys can tweak it, you can change it if you wanna let me know what you prefer. I know today technically is their last day of the day school program for my rounds. I'm going to be just taking a break from day school just for 2 months in the summer. The rest of my programs are still running as usual. It's just, it's a little bit more challenging with the kiddos being home to be away for more during the daytime. So Zeke's like, good night, lady. So what we're going to do, I'm going to see if I can wake up Mr. Z. He's like, oh, maybe. So I'm just going to get him to see it. He's like, I don't know if it's worth getting up for that. Oh, he's so tired. So if he's a little bit pooped out, he can go find that later. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go watch that, and then yes to feed him. So again, watch that, yes. So even if your puppy in the beginning does the smallest little eye gaze in the direction of the thing, but maybe doesn't necessarily completely eyeball it, I would still count that and build up with some shaping up to the full big boy skill. So again, watch that, yes. So again, Mr. Z could care less. So he's like, oh, maybe I will go get that last little tidbit. So he doesn't care that I'm busting out a cone, which is fine. Some dogs, oh, I dropped one. Ready? Want to find it? Some dogs may find the said item a little nerve-wracking. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, make sure you're picking something your dog does not find spooky. So, or has an emotional response like a dog toy would be something we stay away from. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it because now you can see him better this way. I'm going to go watch that. Yes. Watch that, yes. So right now, the slogan is paired with the action. Eventually, you would go ahead and you'd have it out, like I mentioned, on a chair, and you would say your cue and then have your babe look at it, and then you'd feed him for that. Watch that, yes. This could eventually turn into people watching or critter watching or inanimate objects. Maybe your dog, I was working with another client yesterday, and her poodle is also getting a little bit nervous around certain strange items. So strange for him, not strange for us. So trash barrel hanging out in the middle of the road, a little spooky. So things out of context or that seem out of place, like a plastic bag in the middle of the field, really spooky. So if you're at times seeing that your dog is nervous about something, we want to be careful that we're not pushing them or rushing the steps or forcing the interactions, because then we might actually be, again, doing what's called more flooding than actually teaching or counter conditioning or slow desensitization. So to actually desensitize something or someone to something, you would have to work the person or dog under their threshold at a rate that they feel comfortable being exposed to their said thing or trigger. And you would then be pairing that with things they enjoy as well. So that would be part of the counter conditioning too. But desensitization is not flooding your dog with a setup and pouring it all over them in the sense of just sort of throwing them in the deep end and hoping they make it. So right here, we're going to go again. Ready? Watch that. Yes. His little eyeballs went up. His head, not so much. Watch that. Yes. So with this game, I know right now he's a little bit tired, so we'll give him a little break. So the many benefits of doing a watch that or look at that skill for looking at something other than you is, again, we can start to change. You getting comfortable? You can start to change the emotional response to that thing. So if your dog was, let's say I had another pup, one of my previous clients a while back, her dog was actually kind of nervous around new strange men, and she had gone through a lot of my classes and was doing beautiful, but I didn't know about this because she never showed those signs here. She was very comfortable. Any new person in here didn't seem to bother her. But then when she did my field trips class, which is like where we go to outdoor or indoor public places, she was actually having a little bit of a hard time, was a little grumbly, getting a little nervous, and seeing these new strange folks off in the distance. So remember, just because your dog does really well in one context does not mean that they actually generalize those skills to other venues. So your dog might be fine with things happening at home or vice versa because of their original sort of comfort range there. So for some babes, going to a novel environment where there's too many unpredictable things can be a little bit overwhelming and can also create some trigger stacking. So that's where one thing after another kind of build, and then out of nowhere, a bigger response may come, though it didn't come out of nowhere. So I would recommend that if you're working on the look at that or watch that game, start in the home or in the backyard, somewhere where he's still responsive, taking food, and is somewhat focused. If you find when you're practicing you are losing your babe to the environment or to triggers, it's already too hard of a place for even learning, let alone changing behavior or responses. So if we're trying to fix excitement over arousal or anxiety / fear and reactivity in the moment they're rehearsing it, you're actually not teaching any other novel response. Remember that whatever they're actually able to work on, they're getting good at. So if they're able to practice over arousal, or let's say, for example, anxiety with some aggression because they're feeling really overwhelmed, then the barking and lunging throughout the walk is what they're getting good at in a way to make themselves feel safe by making the thing go away. So remember that dogs and puppies don't grow out of behavior, they grow into it. So just things to think about. But the look at that or watch that game, there are some really great videos out there as well with even more content. If you're looking for more info on the pattern games, I would highly recommend to take a peek, see over some of the resources I sent along prior. But if you're having a hard time with any of the pattern games or certain skills, do reach out. But I think Mr. Z is just going to be a beautiful little area rug for right now. He's doing a very nice job. Everyone saw the sounds in the building. He barely opens his eyes. But we'll give him a little break from the look at that game because it was obviously very strenuous. And then we're going to work a few more skills if Sleeping Beauty would like to partake. I swear he does actually do things throughout the day. He just decides that when it's time to videotape, it's a great time to take a nap. So, but if your dog is this comfortable around me, I'd say he's doing a pretty good job for comfort range, that's for sure. Okay, well, Mr. Z, you take a little siesta and we'll go back into some more skills in just a second. I know, I'm right here. I'll be right back.